And if I don't, if for some reason I don't touch on that, remind me, or you guys can remind me, you heard the question. So, and for those out here, how do I use my skills as a doctor to address some of these issues? Most of you don't see me on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News every night. I'm not a bomb thrower. I mean, I actually really want to try to solve the issues. I share a lot of the frustration, but I realize that if you want to move anything in the House, you've got to get 218 votes in the Senate, 60 votes to get it to the floor if you want to pass something. How I use my skills as a doctor is I really have tried to get to know certainly the members in my party on the Democratic side, but really try to understand the perspective of the members on the Republican side. Because if I don't understand what they're saying or what's driving them, it's hard for me to influence them to try to move them in a positive direction. And I think I do have a reputation as someone who wants to try to find a path forward and the ability to work together. So I spend a lot of time listening and asking questions and trying to understand. And I think that has served me well. And if I can just expand on that, because I've also, the outcome of the 2016 presidential election shocked me. I think it shocked a lot of people. I think it may have shocked the President of the United States. I don't think he expected to win. And after you kind of go through that shock and recovery, I've spent a lot of time trying to understand how something that seemed totally unexpected happened. I'm trying to understand that, to then understand where is our nation right now. And again, I'm using my medical skills and my training, so kind of taking an academic approach and talk to a lot of people. And there were a lot of folks. If you read David Brooks's column, he's been spending a lot of time trying to think about what's going on in America. And the simple conclusion is we've really segregated as a nation geographically. I mean, you have to dive into it, but if you go to the coast, if you go to the big cities, the economy is doing reasonably well. I mean, so I fly home to our region, our unemployment rate's below 4%. We still have pockets of folks that are underemployed or not making enough, but the issues that people approach me about are homelessness is either the number one or number two issue, affordable housing, maybe affordable higher education, et cetera. But I don't feel overwhelmed. I feel like, okay, let's sit down with the mayors, the supervisors, let's roll up our sleeves and let's try to figure out how to address these things. But I will tell you, when I talk to my colleagues that represent small town Kentucky or rural Ohio, and they go home and talk to them, they see a whole different world right now. They see a world where the capable young people have all left. They've gone to the big cities. They see entire communities that have been ravaged by the opioid epidemic, where people, the institutions that used to hold communities together are all falling apart. And I think they represent a constituency that's afraid. And I think Donald Trump tapped into that fear. I think Bernie Sanders, to some extent, tapped into that fear, what those folks were saying. I don't think Hillary Clinton spent enough time, understanding what those folks were feeling. Now, I think Donald Trump was asking some of the right questions, actually. What happened to those jobs? How do they come back? I don't think he's the answer to any of those questions, but I think shame on us if we don't actually try to understand what's happening in the middle of the country. I don't know how to help small town Kentucky. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know we can't become two countries. And we've got to figure out how do we, and it's not just Kentucky. If you go to rural parts of California, you see a lot of the same issues of poverty, of lack of jobs, of poorer schools. But I do think that's a seminal question that we have to address. And again, there's no easy answer for how you address a country that's drifted and segregated.
So on a follow-up to that, how do you, I understand you're trying to work with the other side, but how do you work with the other side if you don't have a line of facts?
So I'll,
The facts are fake.
yeah, so, I will touch on that question, because that's not an irrelevant question right now, with where we are at this particular point. So just getting back to it, I do think we have to understand that challenge, and remind me of the other two, there were two more healthcare questions. So, since that question came up, let's just touch on that. My opinion, but I think it's an opinion shared by a lot of, the president sees the truth that he sees, which isn't based in fact. I don't want to stand up here, and I don't relish calling the president a liar, but he certainly is a manipulator of facts to serve his truths. And I don't expect the president to change. Right? I think he is who he is. When you talk to people who have known him for a long time, this is how he's viewed the world. Very narcissistic, what's in his best interest. Not presidential, because I expect the president to put the country's interest first, as opposed to the individual's interest. That's not going to change. But getting back to your question, what's been more disappointing to me is the number of my Republican colleagues who have gone silent. These are folks that know better, right? I'm not a fan of Lindsey Graham, but I know Lindsey Graham is a veteran, knows better, because he's said as much. Yet now he's become the biggest apologist for President Trump. And that bothers me.
Where does he have?
So there's...
South Carolina.
Well, is he putting his own reelection ahead of what's best for the country?
If you're the base, the Republicans are Trump's base.
So,
I think the data is bad both ways.
so
Both ways. I mean, I agree with what
Might
you're saying.
might I request that
We'll
you
get
let
back
the
to-
Congressman
Yeah.
finish his thoughts
So-
without so many questions?
I don't know. So, getting to the majority, we won a lot of districts that are in districts that Donald Trump won. At the same time, a lot of the Republican members who are moderate, pragmatic members are the ones that we defeated. So it's a much smaller group of folks that you have to go work with. And I don't know the answer to that question of how we find that ability to work together. I think some of it is a byproduct of real gerrymandered districts across the country where there's 70% Republican, 70% Democratic, and to the gentleman's point, there's also a less pragmatic wing of our party as well that potentially says, okay, well, for 4 years we had to take it from you, and now the next 4 years, if we're in the White House, we're just going to dish it back at you. I don't think that heals the country. I don't know who I'm going to support for president, but I do want someone who is going to try to start healing this nation. And understanding that it will take different solutions in different parts of the country. It's interesting. I'm becoming a smaller government Democrat in the sense that I think the federal government ought to focus on some of the bigger issues. So climate change, I think, is one that the federal government should focus on. National security, homeland security, immigration policy. But I think we should push resources to the counties, the cities, the states, closer to where that mayor, because you do also see some thriving communities in rural America, where they've picked themselves up and they've reinvented themselves. How do we empower some of those communities to realize the assets that they have? Again, that's pie in the sky, but I think there's got to be a better working relationship. And you have to have a functional Congress, which is not functional right now. So how do we address healthcare? You're going to hear lots of ideas: single payer, Medicare for all, short the ACA. We have a proposal that we're going to introduce probably next week about universal coverage and auto enrollment, which we think would cut the number of uninsured roughly about 29 million. We think we could cut that number in half, because half of those 29 million already qualify for free health insurance, Medicaid, they're just not signing up, or very low subsidized insurance. I think we ought to look at all of the ideas. I know what we're going to focus on is what can we accomplish today. Is that still 29 million too many? folks that can't go see a doctor. And some of that is by strengthening the Affordable Care Act, some of the things that the Republicans were able to pull out of it in the last Congress that I think have actually increased costs 10, 20, 30%. How do we get those back in there? And then how do we allow the states to experiment with auto enrollment to get that 10 to 15 million folks that would qualify for no cost or low cost health insurance into the system? And then I think you will hear 20 different healthcare plans from many of the Republican candidates that are running, or Democratic candidates that are running for president. And I think we ought to, look at every idea, measure those ideas. Are they things that you could actually implement or not implement, and how do we get from here to there? But I think there's a common value that we will be better served if we can get everyone into the healthcare system. So, and there are lots of different ideas out there. Reproductive health. So one of the first honors I received in my first term in Congress was being named Planned Parenthood's Legislator of the Year. So I thought it was one of these awards that they gave to a number of members. They gave it to one House member and one Senate member. So, in my first term, as a doctor who constantly would go to bat to make sure our patients have the rights to choose their own healthcare decisions, that was a huge honor. And then Sherrod Brown got it on the Senate side. And, we continue to go to bat for Planned Parenthood and to protect a patient's right to choose. And to me, that is essence to being a doctor. You take 3 oaths. You take do good, do no harm, but then patient autonomy. And patient autonomy really is based on my job as a doctor is to sit there and answer your questions, go through risks and benefits, but really then empower you to make the healthcare decisions that impact your lives, regardless of what that decision is. So, and I do feel pretty strongly about that.